So we're going to move seamlessly actually back in time in terms of what goes on in a mediation. But again, it's to do with what we actually do in the room. And it's something that's really, it's been on my mind for quite a long time, which is how do we describe mediation to our clients in the moment? So what I'm going to do, I'll share a few thoughts. But before I do that, I think I'll start with you. I think we we'll just have a shouty out rather than get you into groups. So off the top of your head, and equally to people who are online, is there a one sentence that come to you? This was quite relevant before the pandemic for many of us who were attending local courts, because the sheriff would say to people, go and speak to these nice folk. And in Glasgow, the corridor is full of people who don't look very nice. They might be delightful, but they've got quite a lot of tattoos and scars. So you're in this corridor that can be fairly alarming. And you've got a very, very short amount of time. What do you say? Because most people, of course, have no idea who you are or what you're there to do. So that was what got me thinking. And even with the pandemic, and even when you meet people for the first time, they may have had an intake conversation. There's still a moment when you're going to say, this is what I'm here to do. So let's just get some answers off the bat from people in the room or online. You seem to be able to hear each other, which is lovely. And I'll look, if you're online, you could put your hand up or press the hand up button and we'll try and see it. Anyone like to go first?
Charlie, I normally use words like we're going to have a conversation, we're going to have a discussion, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay. So first up, going to have a conversation. Hang on, I think, did somebody put that in the chat? Jane, sorry, yes, your hand's up.
Oh, sorry, hand up. I say it's dispute resolution where you're the decision maker.
Okay, so there's another variant on that, placing the emphasis on the party as decision maker. What else? That's Andrew.
Helping them to talk through the issues.
Okay, so it's not so far away from a conversation, but there's a focus helping them to talk through the issues. Yep. Anyone else online? I think we had another hand in the room, so I'll go to Graham.
So it's something like it's an opportunity for you with a bit of help from us, if it's two mediators, to see if we can find some way of resolving the issues you've got.
Okay, so there's within that, I think there's a hint of we'll help you. And there's a hint of problem solving, way of resolving. So you're touching on the purpose, which is also quite significant.
I think it's important to say that we're sitting down to solve the conflict together, all of us.
Okay, so that captures quite a number because it does touch on the purpose, but throwing in the word together, that achieves something else, doesn't it? It implies that this will be a joint process that
we're all in it.
Yes, and I notice you include yourselves, which is interesting as well, that the joint problem solving endeavor includes the mediators. And there's something in there now. I think someone else has their hand up. Stephen, yeah.
I'd like to offer that the sense of reaching an agreement.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. So there's another component that we may or may not include in our, tuppence worth. We don't have very long usually, which is this is the purpose. This is the focus. Again, I would suggest it touches on purpose and it presents people with, I guess, if you like, the end goal of the thing. Victoria.
I think it's quite important to say to people it's a safe place to have a difficult conversation.
Okay, did people online hear that? Safe place to have a difficult conversation. So that's interesting as well. It touches on something about the process, I suppose. You know, that this environment is safe. I think you're making that offer, making that claim. And by calling it difficult conversation, I suppose you highlight for people, I guess, well, I might imply from that this is going to be difficult because I've got to listen to that bugger on the other side. But people can read into whatever they want to, can't they?
I think partly because people sometimes resist mediation because they're frightened about their own emotions, that their emotions will get out of control, or the other person's emotions might get out of control. So I
Of
think
course.
it's a
Yes.
place where you can
Okay.
do that.
So I think that's really helpful, actually. Thanks a lot. I mean, I think already what you have highlighted, and you've teed up my little presentation. I'm going to do a PowerPoint now for about 10 minutes, and then we'll think again about exactly how we might do this. But what you've highlighted is that there's quite a lot of options available to us. We may have quite a short period of time at the beginning when people's attention is probably all over the place. You know, the early moments of a mediation, if you're lucky, they're going to listen to you for a couple of minutes, and you've got other stuff to pack in, haven't you? You've got to pack in something about your sense. I'm not going to the mediator's intro. What you choose to pack in is up to you. But I imagine most of us have a certain amount of a bullet point list of things that we want to cover. So there isn't a lot of time for this. And already we've seen there's a number of options available to us. What I'd like to do now is share, here's some thoughts I had earlier. What I need to do is do a share screen. There we go. And then I think I need to play from the start. And I might even be able to use my clicker. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? How do we describe mediation? So can people online see that? Let's just check that first with you guys. Yep, I'm seeing some nods from folk online. That's delightful. Okay, I want to shrink this down so it doesn't get in the way. So I did the thing that most of us would do, first of all, just Google. Oh, my clicker's not working. Maybe it will work. Can I get rid of this? This is from the Ministry of Justice in England, actually. And this is, if you like, it's a sort of classic, isn't it? Flexible and confidential process to settle a dispute between two or more people, businesses, or other organizations. It's kind of what you might call accurate but dull. Or is it accurate? It's certainly, it's a classic. It's not going to work. Here we go. This is Scottish Mediations. I know we have their director in the group. So that's two sentences. I thought it was worth putting them both. There's the flexibility. It also talks about the mediator, something there about the mediator's role. And you'll see the helping. You'll see the word solution. You'll see the word disagreement. So there's a number of key components come into that. These rogues. This is Strathclyde Mediation Clinic. They've slung quite a lot of mud at the wall, haven't they? And it's a bit of a mishmash, probably, of both description, purpose, process, what you might, I'll come back to this, but mediation philosophy, as in mediators don't make decisions. There's something in there, isn't there, about our own view of ourselves. Now, those are just three pulled off the internet, and we could probably borrow any of those quite helpfully. Before I get us into thinking about this, and I would like everybody to go away from here actually with either a version of this for themselves or the challenge to create a version, to have your elevator pitch. Because I do think it's a very crucial part of the process, more so than we might think. You're orientating people to what we do at a key moment, that opening moment of the thing. But here's some caveats. Now, some of you have seen this stuff before. If you've done my course, you've been exposed to what some of the critics say about us, but I think we ought to be reminded of a couple of things. So, first of all, we'll start with a couple of English sociologists who studied family mediators in the 1980s and 90s. They recorded on a cassette recorder what was going on. They transcribed it. And of course, the mediators said, we are impartial. We are neutral, in fact, they said. We will not take sides, and so on and so on. And here's quite a famous quote from Dingwall and Greatbatch. It's become part of the lore of mediation. I hope you can all read that. And what they're essentially saying is that, in fact, that neutrality or impartiality had some boundaries. I like to see it as an actual box. So, I mean, they're talking about family, and I understand that's quite a specific context. But I think what's interesting is what they noticed in the realm of family has probably got some relevance to other types of mediation as well. That within a certain spectrum of probably what the mediators regarded as reasonable or normal, then it was absolutely right. You were pretty much free to do what you chose. And in that case, it was your kids might spend this amount of time with this parent, this amount of time with that parent. But if you did something outside the parameters of the permissible, then they suddenly noticed the mediators applying strong pressure and coaxing people and using a range of what they described as kind of psychological pressure techniques to drive the parties back towards what the mediators regard as reasonable. I'm not here to rerun whether that's right or wrong, but I think what's interesting is I wonder how closely that chimed with what the mediators told the parties they'd be getting. I think that's the interesting question. If you're going to do that, that might be a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But did the parties know? And could they see it coming? Let's have another. I mean, again, this was a family mediation. This is a very famous American academic, Trina Grillo, who is a Latina woman who went through mediation in the California compulsory mediation system. And she felt very aggrieved. She felt she'd been closed down by the mediator or mediators, I think there might be more than one, that when she wanted to express her anger as a woman of color, that was suppressed. She felt the norms of the mainstream society were being imposed on her by the mediator, which meant she couldn't get her point across, and that her ex-husband was able to pull the wool over their eyes and end up with a very unfair and oppressive outcome. Now, again, I think her words have had a big impact. I think mediators have probably, what's the word? Tightened up their act to some extent as a result of this, but I'm not defending all mediators everywhere. But again, I go back to the point, I wonder what the mediators told her she could expect, and how closely that chimed with what she actually received. Now, here's a longer quote. I don't know if I'll read it out in full. This is from an English academic called Debbie Di Girolamo, which is probably of Italian origin, but certainly based in London. And she observed commercial mediators. Now, I don't think I'll read the whole thing out, but her point really is that in the mediations she observed, which were commercial and were quite high value, some of them, but it was law. Law seemed to her the primary driver of decision-making. And again, I'm thinking, I wonder what the mediator's intro said or the blurb said, and I wonder how closely what the mediators said corresponded to what the parties got. Possibly it did in the commercial realm. In simple procedure, as we've already touched on today, the law or the courts, what the courts might do, could well be quite a big component of their decision making. And again, I'm sort of curious to what extent we flag up that might be part of our role. So I finally turned to another UK academic, which was me. And I found this, I wrote this quite a long time ago when I was responding to Hazel Genn's talk. After hearing it, the one where she said mediation's not about just settlement, it's just about settlement. And at the time, I had a bit of a go at the mediation profession. And my words came back to bite me. We could bring our rhetoric more closely into line with our practice. It's got to be more honourable and better for clients. So I was kind of talking to myself as much as to anybody else to say, what are we actually telling people that we do? Okay, in the light of all of this stuff, and maybe in the light of some, I mean, one of the nice things about the clinic, and I know the same goes on in Edinburgh, we're writing reflections. We are being reflective about our own practice. We should have a reasonably clear view of what we're up to. Hang on. Something binged, but I don't know what.
Somebody wanted.
No, I think my phone's died. Doesn't matter, but we'll have to resolve. They won't be able to see you for a minute. Anyway, let me just do, there's one more, and then I'm going to come back to you. This is a salutary word from Liv Stocco, who some of us have heard in Scotland, the work that she did. And that she's the one who really had a go at mediation philosophy. And her research found that it was more effective when mediators talked about the process. This is what's going to happen, than when they talked philosophically about things like, we are impartial, we're not here to judge, we don't take sides, those kind of things. She noticed that when the callers that she recorded were trying to coax people to use mediation, that stuff didn't land well. And generally the people weren't interested. Okay, so I'm returning to, but I'd like you to, I think I'd like each of you to take, I'm not sure how long we've got. Yeah, we've got, so could everybody please take 5 minutes now? And I'd like you to write your elevator pitch. Well, your Glasgow Sheriff Court corridor full of angry people pitch. Say two to 3 sentences, because you don't have that much of your intro to do this. This is the sentences on what is mediation. For people who don't know, or they may have read the blurb and they've forgotten it, which is about 90% of our clients, or they may have heard and they've forgotten it. You know, so just a wee recap, a short recap of what are you going to say in the light of all this about what you're offering. And I will try and get the camera to work again.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple more minutes. I know we do it all right at the same pace. Couple more minutes.
Got the drum roll before our answer.
Well, actually, so we're going to do this in a slightly sort of graduated thing. So I'm now going to put you into pairs. So I'm going to ask everyone in this group, you can maybe move away from the big table for, I think 3 or 4 minutes, just to compare with one other person. We won't have time to hear them all, but I am hoping we'll harvest all of these. And those of you online, I'd like you to do the same. I'm going to put you into pairs. So just compare notes. And if between the two of you, you can come up with one that you think you're going to read out, and I'll try and invite as many as I can. The people online, once you've done this, we might be able to use the chat function if we run out of time. So, but first of all, do it in pairs, just to see between you, can you come up with one that kind of takes the best of both? Or can you decide, one of you might say, do you know, yours is great, just read that. Okay, you've got 3 or 4 minutes to do a honing process online. You are going to get another invitation to a breakout, and you, yeah, decide between you which is the best, or make a best of. Hang on, I need to press this. Okay. Can we gather? Gather again, everybody. Now let's see what happens. If I go to speaker view, that's just me. That's no good. We'll go back to gallery. Right. So I'm going to ask for pairs, one of the pair, and I think we'll just hear some. And as you might say in other contexts, this is just going to be, there's going to be a no judgment. We're just here to listen and wonder at the range and variety of human experience. So maybe I'll invite somebody from one of the pairs online first. Would one of the pairs be willing to go first? No. Okay, well, that's one that isn't. Does anyone remember who was number one?
Yeah.
Yeah, would you be willing? One of you be willing to have a go?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
Sandy.
one of the ones that we're 3, we didn't get complete commonality, but I think I'll give you the short one, which
Please.
is, I'm here to help you have a productive conversation with the other party with a view to finding a solution which works for you both.
Fantastic. Did everybody hear that? Thank you so much, Sandy. As I say, we're here to wonder at the wide variety of human endeavor. So we'll maybe take one from the room and then we'll come back. So one of the pairs. Leon.
Very long one, so let's work it out. So this is the one I actually say, so I'm looking for feedback as to how I could slim it down perhaps. So my hope for what we're doing here is that you both leave in a better place than you are now. If we can get to a full and final settlement you're both willing to commit to, that's wonderful. But that's not the only possible positive outcome we might be able to achieve. We might be able to find an agreement on a particular aspect of your dispute. I hope you reach a better understanding of one another's position and what this has all been about. At the very least, this is an opportunity to express your view and be heard. If you can express one another, and if you can allow one another to do that, then who knows where we might end up. Shall we get on with it?
Wow. Is that 7 sentences?
I do all if I get the opportunity.
Thanks, Leon. Can I just check, did people online hear that?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you. And thank you again for sharing that. And you know, that's clearly rooted in actual experience, which is also interesting. Let's hear another, because in a way I'm laying down the challenge of could we revamp or rework it? Any of the other pairs, group 2, for example?
That might have been us, I can't remember, but I'll go anyway. That's all right. Yep. So again, we've probably both had slightly different ways of saying the same thing, really. So it's not quite commonality again. But so mine then was mediation is a dispute resolution procedure where I, the mediator, will help parties in dispute to find their own solutions to the problem faced. And then a follow-up sentence, if needs be, was the parties, after listening to each other's views, will develop, discuss, and hopefully agree solutions to the problem.
Okay, thank you very much. So would you use both those sentences normally?
Well, I just wrote the first one, then I thought, I wonder if that's too short. Should I give a wee bit more explanation about listening to each other's views and stuff? So yeah, it was
Nothing against short here. But yeah, so 1 or 2. Thank you very much, Alan. Let's invite another from people in the room. Any female voices? I'm hearing a lot of male voices so far. Victoria and Eunice. Victoria, then Eunice. Yeah.
I think talking at people is often counterproductive. And we were talking about that cartoon of the dog. People have what we say to dogs, bad dog Fido. You never get a biscuit, thing. What dogs hear from us, blah blah.
Yeah.
Blah. So we thought about putting it the other way and asking them a question. Do you want to tell them about your grievances and hear what they have to say? With mediators present, you can, to keep it a safe place for the talking to happen. Can we see if we can sort this out? So put a question to them.
Okay, so did you hear that? Did people online hear that? Okay, I'll try and repeat it. So Victoria was conveying, I think, do you want to talk to each other about your grievances? Was that the words you used?
Do you want to talk to them about your grievances, hear what they have to say?
Sorry, do you want to talk to her or him about your grievances and hear what they have to say? And then you went on to say, shall we talk this out?
Yeah, because I remember Liz Stoker saying one of her lectures about saying, I think about negotiation work, that if you say to somebody, I can help you, they say, I don't want you. And she said, if you use the language, should we sort this out? Can we sort
Okay.
It actually is much more effective.
So Victoria's tapping into some of the research that suggests people are a bit resistant to offers of help in some contexts. And you're framing it as a question more than a statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort this out.
Okay. So
it's quite empowering.
fascinating. I said I would take Eunice and Aitana and yeah.
Okay, we have seen. All right, we have written down that I think your question was how do you define?
Yes, how would we describe mediation to our clients?
Mediation is a process that allows you to express your emotions about what has happened, how it has affected you, and how you think it may be resolved going forward.
Well, I'll pause you. I'm going to repeat that back. So the first half of it is mediation is a process that allows you to express your emotions. And you'll have to say it again.
About what has happened.
About what has happened.
How it has affected you.
And how it has affected you.
And how you think it may be resolved going forward.
And how you think it may be resolved going forward.
Yeah, then the second part says it affords you the opportunity to also hear from the other party and find a common ground if possible.
It affords you the opportunity to also hear from the other party and find the common ground if possible.
On how to deal with identified issues, then as a mediator, I will be facilitating this process of communication between the parties with the aim to assist you both identify the issues, interests. and
Going to have to
needs.
stop you again because actually I thought it was quite good after 2 sentences. I'm passing a judgment here. So the third sentence was really more about, as a mediator, what I'll do to help you.
No,
Yes.
it's about what they're going to do. It's
What?
the last, it is the
Right.
third sentence that talks about what I'll be doing.
Okay, so I recognize that we're straying into the full mediator's introduction in some regards, and maybe I haven't made it clear enough, but the description, that's what I'm really interested in. We're recording this. I'm going to ask people to perhaps have a go at this and put them in writing. Shall we take another, how are we doing for time? We haven't got, let's take one more, please, from the pairs. Yes, Sibongi. Hi.
Yes, just as a short one, we were trying to find a jargon-free way of doing it in
Okay.
the corridor that you mentioned, and we came up with, this is an opportunity for you both to speak about what matters to you here, and then together perhaps find your own outcome, one that you can both live with.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So did everybody hear that? Well, time is against us. What I'm going to ask, if people wouldn't mind having a go, each of you individually, actually, just email the clinic, I think, email Pauline at the end. Folk who are online, if you wouldn't mind doing that as well. And we'll try and gather them together and just share the practice. I can't resist saying, after all that time in the court, well, very quickly in the court, what I ended up saying to people when the sheriff sent them out into the corridor with me was, we'll help you negotiate a resolution to your case, and it's free. Those were the two things that landed. But there you are. So we've all got our own, and that's maybe a very specific context, and context does matter. So thanks for your efforts on this. I think we'll wrap up there, just coming up for 2 o'clock. This is an ongoing, that's one of the beauties of mediation, isn't it? You're never done. Every day brings a fresh challenge. But yeah, good luck. It's really lovely to see everybody. And perhaps next time we will be back in Edinburgh for the next CPD. We'll do one in the autumn. We'll be in touch, Sandy, about that sometime.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.